The phone shattered the silence of my New York apartment at 2:30 a.m., its shrill ring pulling me from a dream about violins and stage lights. I'm Elowyn Harper, 29. A composer of orchestral music, scraping by in a city that chews up dreamers like me. My latest symphony was set to debut at Carnegie Hall in 3 weeks, a make-or-break moment after years of late nights and empty bank accounts. I fumbled for the phone, squinting at the screen. Torin, my younger brother, he never called, not since I'd left Maine 6 years ago to chase music over the family business. My heart thudded. Something was wrong. Elowyn, Torin's voice cracked, thick with what sounded like tears. It's Dad. There was a boating accident. He's in critical condition at Penobscot Bay Medical. They don't know if he'll make it. The world tilted. What? When? Is he in surgery? They rushed him in a few hours ago, Torin said, his words stumbling. Mom's a mess. Dad was asking for you before they took him. You need to come home. Now. My chest tightened. Dad, Gideon, had always been my rock. The one who'd snuck me to piano lessons when Mom said music was a fool's errand. He couldn't be dying. Not at 60. Not when we hadn't spoken in months. I was out of bed, flipping on lights, my hands shaking as I yanked clothes from drawers. I'm coming, I told Torin. Tell Dad to hold on. After hanging up, I stood 10:10. I stood frozen for a moment, trying to process. Then I moved, booking a flight, calling airlines, my fingers fumbling so badly I had to redial twice. Dad was healthy, always out on the water, fishing or sailing, his only vice a nightly glass of whiskey. But accidents didn't care about that. I drained my savings for a last-minute business class ticket, the only seat left, and called my mentor, Clara Voss, the conductor who'd taken a chance on me. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan, glinting off the half-finished sheet music scattered across my desk. Elowyn, the Carnegie rehearsal is in 2 days, Clara said, her voice sharp. We're presenting to the donors. You disappear now, and you're risking everything we've built. My father's dying, I said, my throat raw. I have to go. Clara's tone softened, but only slightly. I understand family, but I can't guarantee your spot if you leave. You'll have to start over when you get back, if you get back. The words cut deep. 3 years of grinding, composing until my fingers cramped. All for this one shot. But what choice did I have? I get it, I said, though it felt like swallowing glass. The flight to Maine was a blur of stale coffee and restless naps. I kept trying to call Penobscot Bay Medical, but no one could connect me to Dad's room or give me updates. My calls to Torin went to voicemail. My stomach churned, not just from worry but from a nagging unease I couldn't name. During a layover in Boston, my phone pinged with a texted at 11:11 text from Fern, our old neighbor who'd been like a second mom growing up. Be careful, Elowyn, things aren't what they seem. I dialed her number, heart racing, but her son answered. She's resting, he said curtly, then hung up. I stared at the phone, unease growing. Memories of home flooded back as the plane descended over Maine's rugged coast. Dad had been my champion, encouraging my music when Mom, Maris, insisted I join Harper Seafood, the family's struggling fish processing business. Torin had followed her lead, accusing me of abandoning them when I moved to New York. Then there was the trust fund from Grandpa, a quirky old fisherman who'd left me $7.8 million. To be released on my 30th birthday, 4 weeks away. Unlike Torin, who'd taken his share early and sunk it into the business, mine came with a catch. I had to pursue a career outside the family trade. One Harper needs to break the mold, Grandpa's will had read, a vote of confidence that warmed my heart but drove a wedge between me and my family. Torin was waiting at baggage claim, his lanky frame easy to spot. At 26, he had Dad's rugged looks, windburned skin, sharp jaw, but his eyes were dry, his expression off. Elowyn, he said, hugging me stiffly, thank God you're here. How's Dad? I asked, searching his face. He hesitated a beat too long. It's touch and go. The doctors are doing all they can. I gripped my bag. I need to see him. Now. The drive to Penobscot Bay Medical was a tense, silent slog through Maine's coastal fog. Torin gripped the wheel of his beat-up pickup, his jaw tight, avoiding my questions about Dad's condition. "We'll know more when we get there," he muttered, eyes fixed on the road. My stomach knotted. Fern's cryptic text. Things aren't what they seem, looping in my mind. I wanted to believe it was just exhaustion playing tricks. But the hospital would tell me the truth. It had to. We pulled into the parking lot. The hospital's stark white lights cutting through the mist. I bolted from the truck, barely waiting for Torrin to catch up. At the reception desk, a tired nurse glanced up as I leaned in. Breathless. "I'm here for Gideon Harper. He was admitted last night, boating accident. Critical condition." She frowned, tapping at her computer. "Harper? I'm sorry. We don't have anyone by that name. Are you sure it's this hospital?" My blood ran cold. "Check again, please. He was rushed in a few hours ago." She shook her head. "No record. And the ICU hasn't had any trauma cases since yesterday morning." I spun to Torrin, his face pale, lips pressed thin. "What's going on?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Where's Dad?" He shifted, glancing at the exit. "There must be a mix-up. Maybe they transferred him." "A mix-up?" I snapped, loud enough that a passing orderly turned. "You said he was here. Torrin, you said he was dying." He grabbed my arm, steering me toward the hall. "Not here, Elowin. Let's go home. I'll explain." I yanked free. "Explain now, or I swear I'll make a scene." His shoulders slumped. "Dad's not here," he admitted, voice low. "He's at home. It was a minor injury. Not a full accident. We might have exaggerated." The betrayal hit like a punch to the gut. Exaggerated? I gave up everything to come back. My symphony, my career, my savings, because you said Dad was dying. Torrin looked away. "We needed you here. It's important. Family important." He wouldn't meet my eyes. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about love or worry. It was about something else. The drive to our family home, a weathered Cape Cod overlooking the harbor, was suffocating. Torrin's vague excuses about family duty only fueled my anger. When we pulled into the driveway, I noticed cars I didn't expect, a sleek BMW I recognized as Ansel's, our family lawyer, and a vintage Mustang that belonged to Uncle Lyle, who lived in Boston. "Why's everyone here?" I asked, my voice sharp. "They're supporting Mom," Torrin said, too quickly. "It's been rough." I stormed inside, following voices to the dining room. There they were. Dad, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey, looking as hearty as ever. Mom, Maris, in a crisp blazer, her pearl earrings glinting, Torrin trailing behind me, and Ansel. Papers spread across the table like a battle plan. No tears, no grief, just a room full of people caught mid-scheme. Dad turned, his face breaking into a smile. "Elowin, sweetheart, you're home." He moved to hug me. But I stepped back. "Don't, you're not hurt, are you?" Mom stood, smoothing her skirt. "Elowin, we know this must be confusing." "Confusing?" I cut her off, my voice shaking. "You lied to me. You made me think Dad was dying." Torrin shifted uncomfortably. "We needed you here," he said, echoing his earlier words. "For what?" I snapped. "What was so urgent you faked a near-death accident?" They exchanged glances, and Ansel cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should sit down and discuss this calmly." I didn't sit. My eyes landed on the papers, legal documents, financial projections, all tied to Harper Seafood. Then it clicked. The trust fund, Grandpa's $7.8 million, locked in a trust until my 30th birthday. 4 weeks away. Unlike Torrin, who'd burned through his share in the business, mine was untouchable unless I agreed to release it. And the condition, that I stay out of the family trade, had always been a sore point. "This is about the money, isn't it?" I said slowly, the realization dawning. Grandpa's trust. Dad's eyes flickered, betraying him before he masked it with a warm smile. "This is about family," he said, "about preserving the Harper legacy Grandpa built." Mom nodded. "You've been gone too long. Elowin, with your birthday coming, it's time to come home. To help us." Ansel chimed in. "The company's facing a temporary shortfall. Your trust could secure its future." I looked at them, Dad's forced sincerity, Mom's calculated calm, Torrin's guilty silence. They thought I was the same naive girl who'd left Maine 6 years ago. The one they could guilt into anything. They were wrong. They'd taught me family could be a weapon. And I wasn't going to let them wield it against me. Not anymore. The fury burning in my chest could have lit the whole house on fire. But I swallowed it. If my family thought they could manipulate me into handing over $7.8 million, they were about to learn I wasn't the pushover they remembered. I forced a stiff nod and headed upstairs to my old bedroom. The same one I'd left at 23. Still frozen in time with its faded band posters and creaky bed. Alone, I sank onto the mattress, trembling with rage and hurt. They'd faked Dad's accident, exploited my love for him, all for money, but I wasn't going to scream or run. I was going to outsmart them. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the Lobster Shack, 8 p.m. Come alone. Fern, our neighbor, had been like a second mom growing up, always slipping me cookies and listening when Mom's criticism of my music dreams stung too much. Her warning at the airport, "Things aren't what they seem," had been nagging at me. I typed back, "I'll be there." If anyone could tell me what was really going on, it was her. Dinner with my family was torture. Mom had cooked my favorite, clam chowder and cornbread, clearly a calculated move to soften me up. The conversation stayed light, skirting around Dad's accident or the trust fund. But I caught their glances, like they were sizing me up. Dad talked about the business, how Harper Seafood was poised for growth, while Torin nodded along, avoiding my eyes. After dessert, Mom suggested we all have drinks in Dad's study, but I pleaded jet lag and slipped away. At 7:45, I changed into jeans and a dark sweater, sneaking out the back door. The Lobster Shack was a weathered diner by the docks, its neon sign flickering. Fern sat in a corner booth, her silver hair pulled back, her sharp eyes scanning me as I slid in across from her. At 72, she was still formidable, a retired librarian who'd seen every Harper family drama unfold. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, her voice low. "I almost didn't," I admitted, ordering a coffee to steady my nerves. "What's going on, Fern?" "They faked Dad's accident." "Why?" She leaned forward, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "Desperate people do desperate things. Elowin, Harper Seafood is drowning. Your dad overextended, bought new boats, built a processing plant, all on loans he can't repay. Investors are pulling out, and there's talk of shady deals, money moving through shell companies." My mind raced. "And they think my trust fund will bail them out?" Fern nodded, sliding a folded newspaper across the table. It was a local business section, 3 months old, with a headline, "Harper Seafood faces investor lawsuit. Delays mount." "This is just the start," she said. "Your mom's sold her jewelry. Torin's been meeting with some rough types, loan sharks. Maybe they're out of options." I stared at the article, my coffee growing cold. "Why are you telling me this?" Fern's eyes softened. "Because your grandpa was my friend. He set up that trust to protect you, not to prop up your dad's bad bets. Gideon's always been reckless, and Maris enables him. They'll drag you down if you let them." Her words hit hard, echoing the wedge Grandpa's trust had driven between me and my family. I thanked her and left, my resolve hardening. I needed more than Fern's word. I needed proof. The next morning, I played the part of the dutiful daughter, apologizing at breakfast for my outburst the day before. I was shocked. "That's all," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm here now, so let's talk about the business." Their relief was almost comical, Dad's grin, Mom's quick squeeze of my hand, Torin's nervous nod. After breakfast, Ansel arrived, his briefcase stuffed with documents. He launched into a polished pitch about Harper Seafood's bright future, claiming they just needed a strategic investment to weather a temporary liquidity issue. "My trust fund," he said, "would make me a partner, with a $7.8 million stake." I nodded thoughtfully, asking to review the papers alone. Ansel hesitated but agreed, his smile tight. I called Roland, Grandpa's old lawyer, now retired in Vermont. He sounded surprised but grim when I explained the situation. "This is exactly what your grandpa feared," he said. "Gideon tried to challenge the trust after your grandpa died. Wanted it all under his control. But it's ironclad. Only you can release those funds after you turn 30. And there's a clause: if anyone tries to coerce you, the money can go to charity instead. Relief washed over me. So they can't force me? Not a chance, Roland said. But be careful, Elowin. They're desperate. That afternoon, Torin offered to show me the company's new facilities. I went, asking innocent questions that revealed more than he realized. The processing plant was half built. No workers in sight. Permits, he mumbled. The docks had new boats. But half were idle, waiting on contracts, he said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Back home, Mom cornered me in the kitchen, her usual poise fraying. We're in trouble, Elowin, she whispered, glancing at the door. Your dad mortgaged the house. Our savings, everything. If the business fails, we lose it all. For a moment, her fear seemed real, and I felt a pang of pity. Then she added, your trust fund is our only hope. And just like that, the pity vanished. It wasn't about saving the family, it was about saving themselves. That night, I met Cal, my high school friend, now a financial crimes investigator with the state. We sat in a coffee shop one town over, where no one would recognize us. I laid out the situation in vague terms, calling it a hypothetical case. Cal's eyes narrowed as he sipped his coffee. Sounds like a Ponzi scheme, he said. New investor money paying old investors. While the company bleeds, that's wire fraud, securities fraud, maybe money laundering if they're using shady lenders. Federal charges, prison time. I swallowed hard. And if someone knows but doesn't report it? They could be an accessory, he said, his voice low. Elowin, if this is about your family, and I think it is, watch your back. Document everything. I went home and started building my case. I photographed Ansel's documents, recorded conversations, Maine's a one-party consent state, and wrote a timeline of every lie since Torin's call. My family thought I was bending to their will. But I was playing their game. And I was playing to win. 3 days, that's what Dad gave me to decide on signing over my trust fund. He announced it at breakfast, claiming a big investor was coming to town and needed assurance of new capital. The urgency was a blatant ploy, but it gave me the perfect window to turn their game against them. I nodded, playing along. 3 days should work, I said. I just need to make some calls to wrap things up in New York. Dad's face lit up, thinking I was caving. Mom squeezed my shoulder, and Torin let out a breath he'd been holding. They had no idea what was coming. Behind the scenes, I was moving fast. Fern connected me with her nephew, a private investigator who specialized in financial crimes. For a steep fee, charged to my emergency credit card, he dug up a gold mine, offshore accounts in Gideon's name, shell companies tied to Harper Seafood, and years of doctored financials. Cal, my investigator friend, linked me with the right authorities. And Roland, Grandpa's lawyer, helped draft complaints to the FBI, SEC, and State Financial Crimes Unit. Time to strike on the day of the signing. Every document I photographed, every conversation I recorded, was uploaded to a secure cloud folder. I wasn't just protecting my trust fund anymore, I was fighting for the fishermen, contractors, and neighbors who'd been cheated by my family's greed. The night before the signing, my family pulled out all the stops. They organized a family gathering, dragging in cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts with rehearsed speeches about Harper loyalty, even Uncle Lyle, who droned on about legacy. I sat through it, smiling politely, while they toasted to unity and prosperity. Torin raised his glass, his eyes flickering with guilt. Mom's smile was tight, and Dad's voice boomed with false warmth. I raised my glass too, knowing that by morning, their house of lies would collapse. I barely slept, my mind racing with what I'd say when Ansel arrived with the papers. At dawn, I stood in my childhood bedroom, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Dad had helped me stick to the ceiling when I was 9. That man, the one who'd believed in my music, felt like a stranger now, replaced by someone who'd faked a near death to rob me. I dressed in a charcoal blazer and cream blouse, projecting calm confidence, and headed downstairs. Mom was arranging pastries on her best china. A nervous tick. You're up early, she said, eyeing my outfit. It's a business decision, isn't it? I replied, pouring coffee. She paused, then gave a brittle smile. It's a family decision. By 9 a.m., Ansel was there, setting up documents on the dining room table with surgical precision. Dad stood nearby, whiskey in hand despite the hour. Torrin hovered, and Mom fussed with a vase of lilies. Where's Maris? I asked, noticing her absence. Getting ready, Dad said. She'll be down. He cleared his throat. Elowin, I want to thank you for seeing reason. You're proving you're a true Harper. The irony almost made me laugh. Ansel gestured to the table. These documents will transfer the trust assets to Harper Seafood on your 30th birthday, making you a partner. I sat across from him, scanning the papers slowly. I'd like you to explain each one. For clarity, I set my phone down. Its recorder running. Ansel glanced at Dad, who nodded. As he began, the doorbell rang. Mom frowned. Who's that? I'll get it, I said, standing. I opened the door to Roland, Grandpa's lawyer, flanked by 4 suits and Cal, with uniformed officers behind them. Roland, I said loudly, thank you for coming. Please, come in. Dad's face crumpled, shock, then confusion, then dread, as the group stepped inside. A woman in a sharp blazer spoke first. Gideon Harper, I'm Special Agent Laura Klein, FBI. We have a warrant to search this premises and seize records related to Harper Seafood. Mom appeared, her composure cracking. What is this? Another agent stepped forward. Securities and Exchange Commission. We're investigating securities fraud, wire fraud, and investor deception. All eyes turned to me. Dad's voice was a low growl. Elowin, what have you done? I met his gaze. Steady. I've done what Grandpa would have wanted. I've protected his legacy, not the lies you've built. Officers moved past, heading for Dad's study in the basement files. Then came the twist. Agent Klein held up a document from Dad's desk, her voice cutting through the chaos. Mr. Harper, this appears to be a forged amendment to your father's will, dated 10 years ago, redirecting Elowin's trust to Harper Seafood. Care to explain? Dad's face went ashen, but before he could speak, Ansel stammered. That wasn't us, it was her idea. Her? I asked, my stomach dropping. Klein turned to the door, where officers were escorting Fern into the room. Fern, my confidant, my second mom, stood rigid, her eyes avoiding mine. Fern? I whispered. Klein continued. We've traced payments from Harper Seafood to Ms. Fern Whitaker, who holds a hidden stake in your company. She orchestrated the will forgery and advised on the accident ruse to secure Elowin's trust. The room spun. Fern, who'd warned me, who'd given me that newspaper, had been playing me all along. Dad lunged toward me, face twisted. You've ruined us. Cal stepped between us. Back off. Gideon. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Elowin, we're your family. Family doesn't lie and steal, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I pulled out my folder of evidence. I found the records, defrauded investors, unpaid contractors, a Ponzi scheme propping up your lifestyle. And Fern, you helped them every step. Fern's silence was deafening, as agents cuffed Dad, Mom, and Torrin. Fern was taken for questioning. Dad's final glare burned into me. You're no Harper. I'm more Harper than you'll ever be. I shot back, thinking of Grandpa's trust in me. The truth was out, but Fern's betrayal cut deeper than I'd ever imagined. The police cars pulled away from our driveway, their lights fading into the main fog. I stood on the porch, watching neighbors gather across the street, their whispers carrying on the wind. The local news would have the story by nightfall. Harper Seafood exposed, my family arrested, Fern's betrayal laid bare. My childhood home, now taped off as a crime scene, felt like a stranger's. I'd lost the family I'd known. But I wasn't broken, not anymore. In the weeks that followed, I worked tirelessly with the authorities, poring over records to identify every victim of my family's fraud. Fishermen who'd invested life savings, contractors left unpaid, employees facing layoffs. They deserved justice. When my trust fund matured on my 30th birthday, I met with Roland and set up a restitution fund, channeling most of the $7.8 million to those my family had hurt. I kept enough to rebuild my life, But the money wasn't my salvation. Purpose was. With the rest, I founded Coastal Harmony, a nonprofit to support Maine's fishing communities. We rebuilt docks, funded small businesses, and finished Harper Seafood's abandoned projects the right way, ethically, transparently. Cal, my old friend turned ally, consulted on financial oversight, his steady presence becoming something warmer over time. Torrin, out on bail, sent a letter of apology, admitting he'd been swept up in Dad's schemes. I met him for coffee, listening as he promised to change. We're cautious, but we're talking. Gideon and Maris, though, stayed silent, their pride locking them away in prison cells and my heart. Fern's trial is pending, but I can't face her. Not yet. Her betrayal, years of pretending to care while plotting against me, stings deeper than the rest. I poured that pain into music. Back in New York, Clara Voss, my conductor, had followed the news. Instead of shutting me out, she offered me a new commission, a symphony about trust and resilience. You've got a story worth telling, she said. I wrote Shatter and Mend, its strings weaving grief and hope, and performed it at Carnegie Hall to a standing ovation. Standing on that stage, the lights warm on my face, I felt free, not just from my family, but from the weight of their lies. On a crisp fall evening, I stood on my apartment's tiny balcony, the New York skyline glittering below. Cal was due in tomorrow for a weekend visit, his texts already making me smile. Coastal Harmony had just opened a community center in Maine, and Torrin had started volunteering there. A small step toward redemption. The ache of losing my parents and Fern lingered, a quiet scar, but it no longer defined me. I'd built something new, a life of integrity, music, and connection. Grandpa's trust had done more than he could have dreamed, not just saving me but righting the wrongs done in our name. If those you love most betray you, stripping away everything you thought was true, what would you do? Would you forgive, or would you fight to reclaim your own story? For me, it was both, letting go of the family I was born into and building one from the ashes. Note by note,